Chapter 15, Go Fugees. On the morning of the under-15's first game after their suspension, Luma woke up in her small two-bedroom apartment in Decatur, hurried down a short hallway to the bathroom, hunched over the toilet, and threw up. Luma had never become sick before a game until now. Her nerves were frayed. She was terrified that her team might get humiliated by their opponents. Luma understood she was dealing with a group of boys with little self-esteem to spare. Kanye, Nathaniel, and especially Mandela had put their hopes and energy into this new version of their team, and Luma wondered if she was setting them up for failure by keeping the season alive. She didn't know what she would say or do to comfort them if they got blown out. The game was set for Ebster Field on a late September Saturday. A cooling breeze rolled over the foothills east of Atlanta. It was perfect soccer weather. The white YMCA bus arrived on time, and to Luma's relief, a full roster of players jogged onto the field. The Fugees ran laps to warm up. Conway in the lead. He led his teammates through a stretching routine and then had them take the pitch to practice penalty shots. The opposing team was the AFC Lightning from Fayetteville, Georgia, a mostly white middle-class suburb south of Atlanta. The Lightning came from a well-established soccer program with a history of sending teams to both state and national championships. The players on this particular Lightning team were big and looked on average a good 2 years older than the Fugees. Their coach barked commands in a booming voice that rang off the brick buildings of the housing projects across the street. The Lightning wore red and gold and traveled with parents, friends, and siblings who had made the 50-minute trip to Decatur and set up camp on the sideline across the Lightning bench. The Fugees had exactly three fans, a couple who occasionally volunteered to help Luma with tutoring and transportation, and a young librarian named Tito, who had been recruited late by a Liberian player named Osman, who hoped someday to make the team. Luma called her players in. Her pregame instructions were spare, no cussing and no tackling from behind. She didn't want any players getting carded or losing their cool. The Fugees nodded. "Are you ready?" she asked them. "Yes," came the reply. Luma extended her arm, and her players formed a circle around her and stacked their hands on hers. She counted to 3, and the boys responded with a chant of "Go Fugees." Fugees began the game tentatively. They turned the ball over early on a clumsy passes, and then let the Lightning sneak past for a pair of early shots that went wide. Luma subbed her players frequently to keep them rested and to see which lineups worked best. Not 10 minutes into the game, a Lightning player settled a pass on the wing and sprinted down the line past Conway and into open space. From 20 yards out, he pivoted and quickly took the shot, catching the Fugees goalie flat-footed. The ball sailed beneath the crossbar and into the net. The Fugees were down 1-0. Conway urged his teammates to keep their spirits up. Soon the Fugees made a run down the right side, but Muammer drew the linesman's flag for being offside. The Fugees made another go. Muammer was called offside again, to groans from his teammates. Conway didn't snap at Muammer. He simply got gestured with his hand to encourage his new teammate to stay on side, to be patient. Soon the Fugees made another run. This time, Mandela took off down the right line. He powered through the Lightning defenders and worked the ball back toward the middle of the field before blasting a shot that hit the right post and bounced in, 1-1. As the half wore on, the Fugees charged once, twice, and then a third time, at one point racing down the field at a full sprint. Little kids chasing an ice cream truck. Finally, they were getting somewhere. Conway floated a pass downfield to Mandela, who traded passes with Hamdou as they attacked the Lightning defense. When the defense converged, Mandela flicked the ball to Sabajden, a weary Kosovar midfielder who volleyed the shot. Goal. At the half, the Fugees led 2-1. At halftime, Luma tried not to let her relief show. She gathered her players in the corner of the field and quickly ran through her observations. "Listen up," she told them. "You're playing well, but it's getting sloppy. What they do is get the ball and either cross it or switch the field, and they overlap. They do the same thing over and over and over again. Don't let them do it. Don't let them do it." Her players nodded. They understood. The midfielders need to get in there and squeeze out before they can cross it in, okay? Don't give them any crosses, because they could finish them off. "Next thing, Mandela, they're going to mark you this half," she said. The strategy now, she told him, was to head into the box, draw the defenders, and kick the ball out wide to open the player. After doing that a couple times, she told him he should take the shot himself, but not until then. A good soccer player is not going to let them know what he's going to do every time, she said. Mandela nodded. Conway tapped him gently on the back. They could win this. You guys have been doing great, Luma told her players. When you've been going in for the attack and there's like 8 of you charging through, they're not going to be able to defend 8 of you, okay? You need to keep it up at that level, all right? It's 2-1. We need 2 more. It's your first game. You need to set the tone for the season today. The Fugees took the field in the second half with a new energy and confidence. The Lightning marked Mandela as Luma had predicted. In frustration, Mandela pushed off, drawing a yellow card. Conway patted the air with his palms, gesturing to Mandela to calm down. Mandela nodded, seeming to remember what coach had said. On the next trip down the field, Mandela powered through the hulking Lightning midfielders and dribbled toward the box. The defense collapsed around him, just as his coach had told him they would. Mandela jabbed a pass out on the wing to Muammar, who was open. He tapped the ball, altering his angle and freezing the goalie. The ball rolled clear and into the net, 3-1 Fugees. With 12 minutes to go, the Lightning drew within a goal on a penalty kick. Time was winding down, and the Fugees were getting tired. Conway encouraged them to keep fighting. Coach had told them to get 2 more. They had 1 to go. Moments later, Mandela broke free again up the middle of the field. This time, he charged the box, and when the defenders marked their men on the wings, he followed his coach's advice and took the shot himself. Goal. Tito, the Liberian recruit, and the 2 volunteers shouted in celebration. It was 4-2 Fugees. The final minutes of the game were desperate and dangerous. Conway caught a finger to the eye and crumpled to the ground, only to rise moments later in anger. Luma shouted to him to keep himself under control. He took a deep breath and walked away. The Fugees were tired. The Lightning made a run, took a shot, and appeared to score, but the linesman raised his flag to signify offsides. Angry now, they made another run and set up the overlap and crossed onto the right side, the very sequence Luma had warned her players to shut down. Conway called out to his teammates to cover the overlap, but it was too late. The Lightning forward was in the open. He leaned into a shot and blasted the ball into the upper right corner of the net. It was 4-3. The Lightning had seized the momentum. Their parents and coach were urging them. There was a sense that the Fugees had run out of energy. No, guys, Tito called from the sideline. Don't let it happen. The Lightning would have their chance to tie in the final moments when Hamdu Muganga, now on defense for the Fugees, was called for a foul at the top of the penalty box. The Lightning were awarded a free kick from 15 yards out. A lean, blonde striker set up to take the kick. His teammates lined up on the left and right of the goal. He gave the signal, and his teammates charged just as he connected with all of his might. The ball sailed on a head-high line drive toward a mass of bodies in front of the goal. Unable to see the ball, the Fugees goalie was frozen. From the midst of the scrum, a light blue jersey leaped into the air. It was Conway. He cocked his neck and thrust his head into the speeding ball. There was a violent thud, and the ball shot back toward the lanky striker who had kicked it, sailing over his head and bouncing into the empty space at midfield. The ball was still rolling when the referee blew his whistle, once, twice, and again, to signal the end of the game. The Fugees had won. Luma dropped her head in relief. Her players, some of them still strangers to each other, were high-fiving and shouting joyfully at the sky as they ran toward her on the bench. They seemed as surprised as she did. Luma raised her head, pulled her shoulders back, and smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. You guys floored me, she told her players when they had settled down enough to hear her speak. The Fugees broke into applause for one another and for their coach. To tell you the truth, I didn't think you guys were going to come through today, Luma said finally, but you played a beautiful game.